All right, welcome back. We are in our third and final file for lesson 1. This is going to be 1C. This will be a fun one for you. You'll get a lot more time to play today, and you'll have some more creative options here. As promised, I'm going to show you the viewing modes under just the general open navigating panel. So if I go to File, Open, you can change your view. So let's go ahead and go to the right folder. So go to Computer, go to your courses. Hopefully this is already becoming second nature. Go to Art, Computer Graphic Lessons, Photoshop Lessons. We're still in Lesson 1. Now notice you can't see what these look like. If you click up here, it looks like a little calendar icon. That's your viewing mode. So you can choose to make that extra large icon or not. The problem with this is that these are PSD files. So they're not going to show you an image. If they were a JPEG, I'm going to get out of here really fast just so you can see this. Notice if I click on this, I can go back to my list, and I'm not making you go into this folder. I'm just showing you. These are JPEG files, so that it's going to show you what those pictures are. The reason when we're in lessons it's not showing what the picture looks like, it's simply because they're Photoshop files, and we will go into file modes. There will be a teacher lecture and slide presentation talking all about modes, so that will make a little more sense to you. But we're going to go back to that Photoshop Lessons, Lesson 1. So I'll give you a second. Go ahead and navigate back to Lesson 1 folder. Alright, in Lesson 1 folder, we need to open up our third and final lesson, which is that 1C. So again, holding down that Control key, highlighting both of those files and clicking Open. This is the one where we're going to have a little bit more fun today. So if you look here, notice we have a gentleman. Our end file, he's got some pattern and design. So you're going to get to design his tie today, and it will stay inside the tie. Alright, go ahead and close that end file. For our start file, let's go to File, Save As. Click on that computer button, navigate to your folder. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go into our computer graphics folder, Lessons, and we're going to call this 1C, and click Save. Again, if this maximum capability opens up, simply click OK. Alright, let's go ahead and open up your Layers panel. If your Layers panel is not open, as a reminder, all of your panels, go up to Window, and you're going to open up Layers. Alright, a couple things about your panel that we haven't quite gone over yet is there are some options within your panel. You have menus or settings menus. Sometimes they're called drop-down menus. So if you click on this drop-down menu, you're going to notice you have some advanced options. So if I click on drop-down menu, that's simply where that is. You'll see a little white arrow with some lines to the side. Alright, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use our painting tools today to add some design here. So what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you are on this weird looking layer here that has an arrow. It says Tie Designs. What that is it's a mask layer that we're going to have lessons on layer, but all you need to know for today's lesson is that you need to be on that Tie Designs layer. That makes that the active layer. That means any changes that we make are going to happen to that layer. Let's go ahead and grab our paintbrush tool. If you can't locate what the paintbrush tool is, remember if you hover it's going to let it pop up, and we'll have the keyboard shortcut. In this case it's B. So if I'm out here with my magnifying glass, my zoom tool, if I click B, notice it changes to the brush. Alright, so some things about the brush tool here. Let's look at our options. Remember how I said my troubleshooting steps, number 3 in troubleshooting is to check the options bar. If something's not working right with the tool, you want to check up here. So most of the time it's under the mode for the tool. Most of the tools, or some of the tools, will have a mode. Just make sure that that mode is always set to normal. Even if you reset your essentials as a review, it won't always set that back to normal. So if the tool isn't working, you want to check here, make sure that your paintbrush is set to normal. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to change our brush shape and size. This is your brush size up here. Notice if you click on the drop down arrow, do that one more time, click on the drop down, I can change the size of it here. If I come across into my image window, it's going to show you the size of the brush. So you can see how it changes in size as I increase it. What the hardness has to do with it has to do with the edge shape. So I wouldn't worry about that for right now. I just simply leave it set as 0. And if you scroll down, you'll see that there's some different shapes. Now, by resetting the essentials, it should reset it back to the basic brushes panel, but they're pretty boring shaped brushes. They're basically round. This first group is very basic shape round. If you go to the lower ones, they're just kind of a fuzzier. You can kind of see they're blurrier. To change those, to reload the brushes, you click on your drop down for your brush tool. You're going to click on this little spindle dial here that looks like a settings button. If you click on that, you're going to see that you have down in this bottom section, you have brush libraries. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go to assorted brushes. Now you can spend any amount of time you want today opening up these different brushes, but I'm going to go to the assorted brushes. It's going to ask you if you want to replace them in this box. Simply click OK to that. If this comes up again, hit no. That's just a default security setting for us. Just click no. Now, you can go ahead and you can click. Notice there's some weird shaped brushes in here. All right. A couple things about painting. This is your foreground color swatch. It's a color chip that shows if I were to paint or edit, this is the color it's going to be. So if I click, notice I've got these lovely pink stars. Okay. If I want to change my color, I can change it a couple different ways. The easiest way is to simply click on the foreground box and it's going to open up what's called the color picker. And I can change my color to whatever color I want here, and I can make changes. Okay. If I want to reset my default colors, I simply click on this button here. It's going to reset to my default. By default, the foreground color is always black and the background color is always white. That means if I were to erase, it's going to go to white. If I want to flip these, I can simply click on that button there, and it's going to flip-flop my foreground and background. Notice that just flip-flops them. Okay? The other way I can change colors is to open up two other panels. And we will have a painting and editing lesson, but we're just kind of going over the basics today. If I don't want to use the color picker, I can open up the color panel. And notice as I click on the scroll or I move my dials here, you can look over here. Notice how it's changing over here as I make my changes over here. So that's the color panel. It's a lot like the color picker. I tend not to use it very often, but some people, we all have our little Piccadilly's ways we like to use techniques and tools. So if you feel more comfortable with the color panel, you can use that. The other panel is the swatches panel. The swatches panel is great for when you're using a very specific color. So if you know that you want a Pantone red, so for instance, if I worked for the Coca-Cola company or I was commissioned to do some work for Coca-Cola, I would know that Coca-Cola is Pantone red, 753, whatever. So I could go under here and I could find those. And if I let it hover, it's going to give you the specific name. So I'm like, oh, that's Coca-Cola red, which I know it's not. But I would be able to find that red and select that, so I know I'm working the exact shade. The other thing that the swatches panel does is it does allow you to save colors that we'll get into later. Most of us, though, we're just going to use that color picker. All right? So you can go ahead and design how you want with the paintbrush tool. Now, let's talk a little bit about going back in time, and then you can have as much time as you need to design your tie. So let's say I didn't like this last group of pink stars. It's horrible, whatever. I don't like it. I can go up to Edit, Undo. But notice it only goes back one step. If I go to Edit, it doesn't let me go back any further steps. All I can actually do is redo that last one. That's all the Edit, Undo does. Notice you do have Control Z. So Control Z is that keyboard shortcut. If you look at that star at the top of my tie, see how I'm hitting Control Z over and over again. I'm undoing and redoing that last step. If I want to go back further, I have to open up a panel. And that panel is my history panel. If I click on history and I expand this panel, you can see my last few steps. And if I click, I can go back in time. Notice how it's undoing those previous steps. Or I could even jump. Here's the problem though. I can only go back 20 steps. That's our default. So if I want to go back further, the only option I have is to go back to my last saved setting. So in other words, go back to the very beginning. So go ahead And with the remaining time that you have in class, or whatever time you want to allow yourself, go ahead and design your tie. I want you to experiment with changing the brush sizes and colors. Oops, he already went out of his tie. So let's troubleshoot that. What did I do wrong there? Troubleshoot. Number 1, check your layers. So I'm going to open up my layers panel. Yep, sure enough, I'm on that background layer, and I said we need to be on that tie design layer. So what would I do? Well, I can go to Edit, Undo, and since that was only one step, that went back far enough. If not, I'd have to go back in my history further. Alright, so go back to your layers, make sure you're on the tie design layer, and go ahead and have some fun. You can fill it in, you can try experiment with any of the other colors you want. You could even apply a filter if you wanted to. Now you'll notice not all the filter galleries is open to you. That's because of the file mode. That's all you need to know about that. But you can play around with some of the other ones if you want to. Have a little fun with those. When you're done, make sure you go to File Save or File Save As, saving it as Lesson 1C in your Lessons folder. And congrats, you are completely done with the entire first lesson.